back to after this and delve into shoulder.
Yeah. Well, it looks to me like, you know, we've got 2 pages full of people and nobody else joining at this moment. So why don't we go ahead and begin? Thank you guys for chiming in to tell us where all you're from. It looks like we've got a scattering from all over the US. I don't see anybody that's not in the US at this point, but welcome all around the world if you happen to be out there. I am Teresa Gryder. I'm the safety chair of the Lower Columbia Canoe Club, and we're based in Portland, Oregon. And we got a new president whose name is Deborah Kane, and she's the one with the boat on her shoulder in the photograph up there. She's not actually here today, but she tasked me with putting on a series of safety presentations. Just because of COVID, we couldn't hang out together, and we wanted to keep the topic moving forward, keep people thinking about river safety so that when we got back out there in groups again, we would not have forgotten about it. And so we've been doing that, and it's been a great hit. And this is the 5th and final episode of this series. And our guest tonight, our guest tonight is Teresa Rogerson, and in my screen there she is waving. She's a white face with a black background. And she's going to talk to us about fitness and form for preventing injuries in paddling. And she's a kayaker and a stand-up paddleboarder. And so she can speak to both 1 and 2 blade pursuits and the body positions that you may end up assuming in order to pursue those. And so without further ado, I would say, Tree, take it. And if anybody wants to ask a question in the meantime, just type it into the chat window and I'll keep a list. And I will butt in and bother Tree when it seems appropriate, or we'll save the questions for the end if she's on a roll. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. I do have a lot of slides, a lot of stuff to present, but I'll definitely kind of, like you said, butt in when it feels right. I don't want it to be just present and then questions. I want you to ask things as they come up if they're quality. But
there is a hand raising function in Zoom where people can raise a hand and just let us know that they have something that they want to say or ask. So that's fair game as long as it doesn't take over the whole presentation.
Yeah, and I'm just only going to be able to see my slides. So I guess I'm going to go ahead with that. Thanks for the introduction. I'm honored to be here. This has been a passionate subject for me because why? Because I've been injured so much. I'm 6'3". I'm a landscaper, like I dig holes. I'm just going to start sharing the screen so you can see pictures. So here we go. All right, can you all see that?
Yes, I see that.
Well, now my arrows aren't working.
That's okay. Do what you got to do to figure it out.
Okay, that's working. All right, so yeah, here's my life in a nutshell. Kayaking and landscape tools. I'm a surf kayaker. Mostly I started as a whitewater kayaker, and I've been doing surf kayaking lately. This is at Steamer Lane in Santa Cruz. This is just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from. I think I already said I'm really tall. I've got lots of leverage, lots of places to be injured. I'm also a landscape designer. Here's my business, Ecology by Design, and that's my website. And so all of these things here, to me, they look heavy, and they probably should to you too, and that's because they are. And so I've been digging holes and getting out of them for years. I'm middle-aged, I'm 46, middle-aged, I guess, and you know, I'm still paddling. I'm also a massage therapist in North Carolina and other places. And I also get hammered. I get hammered a lot. This is at Steamer Lane. This is kind of like, okay, now what, right?
Hold your breath.
And I do things that are crazy. As at 6'3", I like to get on a 20-foot long inflatable board with people who are 5 feet tall and think that that's going to be great for 50 miles going downriver racing. that was fun. That's the Cal 100. And so what could go wrong here? Like just, I see the faces on this talk, look like the ages are up there a bit. So, I mean, what could go wrong here? Doesn't you think that's going to hurt after a while? It did. My wrist hurt after a while. I mean, why is injury prevention important? I don't know. This is heavy water on Ocean Beach, and John Hadley might have been here, but he was somewhere in that mix.
Is that an altered photo or is that an actual photograph?
No, that's real.
That's real?
Yeah,
I
that was
thought
last
that
year.
was photoshopped.
No. No. So this is at Ocean Beach in San Francisco, and it's called Heavy Water. It's a Red Bull thing, and Red Bull is all about being hardcore, right? So yeah, they take off and they go out and into the maw, and then they have to surf back in on their race boards. So it's super intense. And then this video, I'm gonna surpass. Well, no, I'll go ahead and play it. But just to show you.
Ouch.
All right, enough of that. So the first thing that changed my life is I had done some of that bouncing around like you saw in the video, and then I heard about rolfing, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. Look at that stacked body on the right. I feel kind of like that thing on the left. Let's see, I want to minimize these people. I don't need to see. Okay. And I believe in this, when the body gets working appropriately, the force of gravity can flow through it. And so it's kind of like that concept of getting out of your own way, or just getting rid of the things that are preventing you from healing. And interestingly, the pros that I talked to before this talk have all told me things that are basically get in touch with yourself, know thyself, pay attention. And so to come from these top athletes to hear such basic stuff, it's really confirming that in order to go faster, to go harder, we need to slow down. And so the talk's over, y'all. Let's just get out your yoga mat. We're going to meditate. Okay? No, we're not. But what we need to do is to not exercise on top of an imbalance, or if you have an imbalance, if your system gets out of whack because a muscle is super tight and you exercise on top of that, then you're just going to proliferate that problem and create compensatory problems in your body, compensation. If people are getting strong in a crooked position, then they are strengthening a crooked position and just making things worse. Some of this is going to sound so simplistic, but the second thing that changed my life, and when I mean changed my life, I mean that I went to graduate school for landscape design. I was out of the water for 1 year. During that time, I went to see a Pilates person, like an instructor, and I went one-on-one, which I recommend 3 one-on-ones with a Pilates person before you just go take a class, because of the subtleties. There's so much subtlety going on. But it changed my life in that when I went back to paddling after a year off, I was way better than I was before. And my body felt so much just more in tune. I was more in tune with the river. I was more in tune with my breath, which Joseph Pilates says, above all, learn how to breathe correctly. So to prevent injury, I'm just going to say right now that we need to know how to breathe correctly. Guess what? When you breathe well and you breathe down into your belly and then in your back and then up to your shoulders, all of it, and not just breathe up in your shoulders like a nervous kind of breath, or like most people do, but you really get a good breath. The diaphragm massages your innards and you have better digestion. It's not just that you need a good breath because you need oxygen to get through that rapid or to get through your day. It's that these systems are, all the systems in our body are interconnected. I hope this video works. This is about the concept of tensegrity. Tom Myers, who wrote Anatomy Trains, massage therapist.
This is a tensegrity structure. It was my great good fortune to work and study with Buckminster Fuller early in my life before I became a body worker. And he was the fellow who developed the geometry. Kenneth Nelson, the artist, first started making these kinds of structures. What I'd like you to notice about these is that the dowels, the bones of this structure, if you will, are floating in space, and they are held in space by the balance of the elastics, the muscles and the fascia, the myofascia, if we were doing an analogy to the body. So these structures, we're not used to looking at structures like this. This is similar to a balloon, maybe. But otherwise, we're used to structures that are continuous compression, like houses. So we structured our body as if it were a continuous compression structure too. We think the head sits on the neck, and the head and the neck sit on the torso, and that it's like a stack of bricks all the way down to the ground. But in fact, the bones, at least we can consider it this way, the bones float inside the soft tissue. And when you start seeing the body this way, you see a lot of things. You see how the problem in the hip can really be founded in the arch, that the problem in this side of the neck is down at the bottom of the rib cage on the other side, because you start seeing
something's going wrong.
Of things.
It's not good.
So Hyder Rolf used to say, where you think it is, it ain't. And this tensegrity gives you a model where you can see, oh, if this pulls over here because the whole structure gives into it, the pain might be over here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Got it.
I hope most of y'all got that. Fascia, you may have heard that word. It's only recently kind of come up because they used to, when they would cut into cadavers to study the body, they would cut in there and they would see all this kind of milky white tendinous type, or less than tendons, but just this material, like when you eat fried chicken and just under the skin, there's that kind of white stuff. They would pull that away and just throw it away as if that was just something in the way of what they wanted to study. And now it's like, oh, fascia is basically the fishing net that every part of the body is held together with. Fascia is around all of the parts. It's around parts of your muscles. It's around the set of muscles that make up your legs and arms, and the individual ones, and nerve sheaths, and all of this together, so that to help get you kind of understanding how important it is to respect fascia. It is like if someone pulls your fascia from one shoulder, it's going to pull your whole costume, so to speak. If this were like a Spider-Man costume and someone pulls it, it's gonna affect all over. So oftentimes we have soft tissue injuries that have affected the fascia, and we may need to roll out those so that the fascia can lose some of the scar tissue and line up better, because the scar tissue is like cells on top of cells, just kind of mishmashed and not in the nice smooth way that they were originally. So we can help to ease that through things like massage and through rolling, but just to understand that fascia is very much at play in everything with the body. Okay, so kayaking. Remember this kind of key phrase here: posterior kinetic chain. Posterior, what is that? That's the back of your body. Anterior is the front. Post, back. Kinetic, we know what kinetic is. The chain, meaning it's not just one part, it's a series. So remember this phrase, and then think about kayaking. I want to go forward. Well, okay, I'm not going to go forward, but foundation training is one modality of several that I'm going to introduce. And there's so many different things that are out there now. And I just love that there's so much information now that this is just going to barely touch kind of the tip of the iceberg of stuff. But foundation training is a trademarked thing that is focusing on the posterior kinetic chain of the body. because everything we do in kayaking is forward, right? Our shoulders in canoeing, in stand-up paddling, in outrigger canoeing, all of it is so much forward. Our shoulders roll in, we're leaning forward, we're sitting and crunching into a flexed old man kind of posture, like a classic cartoon old man posture in kayaking. And you'll see some pictures later. But one thing to check out, the simplest thing in the world that you can do, just standing in your room or even in the grocery line if you're not shy, is to do this founder. There is a bit of a technique to it, but basically you are firing up. In other words, you are activating the muscles on the back side of the body. There's an arch and some tension in the lower back. Your butt is sticking out, you're pulling your hips back, and you're tucking your chin so that your neck muscles are stretching and activating to counteract all of the forward flexing that we're doing in paddle sports and in life. Sitting here right now, after sitting here putting this together, I'm going to need to do one of these. And then also there's Pete Egoscue. He's another name that you may find if you ever start getting into this stuff. This right here, if there's nothing else you take away from this talk, if you do this after paddling, if you just put your legs up on your bed like this and your arms out, this helps so much because the gravity that we're all subject to is letting each of those legs, leg bones and muscles and fascia to reseat into the hips without additional variables. I mean, it's comfortable. When your lower back is hurting, if you do this, it's almost guaranteed that you'll feel better. And I've had periods of time where I've done this regularly and my life is just better.
What am I seeing? Is the person in the picture, is their butt on the ground, or are they holding their lower body up with their legs on the footstool?
No, that's good because it does kind of look like she's floating in the air a bit. No, her back and her butt are on the ground.
Okay, all right.
They're just propped up on a, it could be a chair, it could be your bed if it's the right height.
And how long is she staying there?
5 minutes, 10 minutes. Relaxes the muscles of the lower back, opens the thoracic spine, which is big. These pectoral muscles, everybody knows where the pecs are, right? They're above your boobs, kind of those ones. When you open your arms like this, that's very good for those because we as paddlers tend to get quite tight in our pectoral muscles, and that starts a whole chain of problems, and you get strain in other places. And when you get strain in muscles, you lose effectiveness, you lose blood flow, you lose oxygen. So here's where that I just showed you came from. This book is great. You can get it used for a couple bucks in the mail, or you can do Kindle, whatever. I had a big injury in 2016 where I had just won money, which is so unreal as a paddler, coming down the Columbia River in Hood River, doing a downwind sprint on a paddleboard. And a couple days later, all of a sudden I could kind of barely move. And then days went by and then I was on the ground, couldn't get into the grocery store to buy lunch. I was laying on the ground in front of whatever, something like Whole Foods. And my friend came by, Jen Fuller, she's supposed to be here now. She's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I can't help you. I've got to go." And so I eventually, from the ground, I called a chiropractor and was able to peel myself up and go and did every exercise in this book for about 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden I was kind of better than before. I still have some, like a little issue type thing that needs this right in my hip flexors, right close to my groin. So massage therapists traditionally don't go there because it's so intimate or whatever. But I realized it's like, I need to get a little bit of help there. But going through the exercises that are so simple in this book, including what I just showed you, I was walking with my friend with her kids after school, barefoot on concrete.
If it does, just turn off the video and just go with the audio.
Who are you talking to?
Someone didn't realize that they were not, that they
I
were
got
not
you.
muted. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry about that.
So, and the person who turned me on to this is Jen Fuller. She's the one who just is the one who came by and she's like, I can't help you. I've got to go. This right here, this is one of the exercises, floor block, where it's pretty simple, but you're disengaging your shoulders so that you're, I mean, I really honestly don't quite understand it, but it's just simple in that the shoulder blades kind of disengage or separate slightly from the body, and you do like the T shape and then the Y shape and then more like I up above you. And you know, this isn't hard stuff. It's just that it takes a little bit of patience, a little bit of time, kind of like meditation's not hard. You just have to sit there and slug through it. But wow, what a difference. All right. I asked a few people, some champions, ex and current champions, like, hey, I'm doing this talk. What is it that's personal to you? Devin, she told me a long time ago, I work with her in the summer sometimes, paddle backwards as an antidote to paddling forwards. Because the Jen Fuller, who I just showed you, she kind of turned me on to the idea of like, or no, she agreed with me. She helped affirm the idea that getting old, so to speak, in air quotes, is really more a function of certain patterns that you're just repeating over and over again until, you know, they have their consequences. Of course we get old, of course we die, all that. But the whole concept of like, oh man, I'm getting old in my body, I believe that is a lot a function of just imbalances that keep getting repeated and not fixed. Like, I'll show you a couple of quotes that might make more sense to that in a minute. But if we're always paddling forwards like that and curling in like the old man posture I was telling you about, well, paddling backwards is going to exercise different muscles to help balance and peel everything back and be more in a neutral musculature rather than all forward. Anna Levesque, you may have heard her. She's Yoga for Paddling book that she wrote. I don't think I have it. No, I don't have it yet. She said, carry your boat on different shoulders. Huh, wow, that makes sense. Don't be stubborn. Jen Fuller, who I just mentioned, she describes pain as a signal to address that, hey, there's an imbalance in the body and that she can correct it through simple exercises that I'm introducing you to. Thomas Hanna, somatics, wow. He studied, or he presented these very heady stuff, but the red light reflex, about the red light, about Hanna somatics. Habituation is the simplest form of learning. Just kind of let that sink in for a minute. Here is an illustration of the red light reflex. There's a mouse on the left sniffing for a piece of cheese. And then the mouse on the right is one photograph in a series, like super rapid fire, where the mouse is scared. And when you get scared, you contract. And that was captured in the photograph. But if you look at the mouse on the right, does it also not look like that the mouse is an old mouse? Like That was on the left, that's the mouse that was young, and on the right, that was the mouse that was old, or that is old. So the red light, without spending too much time going into this red light reflex, it is the habituation of our body curling in on itself because of different patterns that happen. And then we kind of end up, here's of course a caricature of it. But yes, master, that's what our body is doing as we keep in a forward thing without balancing back. I'm not going to go there yet. Here we go. This might be a little more useful, and I can't read it because the thing's in the way. Chronically contracted. Teresa, will you read it?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay. Chronically contracted muscles often feel tight. Boy, that's true. Muscles that are tight suffer from inadequate circulation. Even though tight muscles get sufficient blood supply to stay alive, they are lacking in optimal fluids, nutrients, and oxygen. As a result, they are unable to excrete the byproducts of muscle function, such as lactic acid. Chronically contracted muscles may also impinge on nerves, place undue stress on their joint attachments, cause local inflammation, and contribute to pain. With so many of their motor units stuck in chronic engagement, tight muscles may also seem weak and unable to access their full potential strength.
Okay, and then finally, I'll take over. Practitioners trained as Hanasomatics educators teach clients to use their brains to reset the resting tonus of muscles. In other words, to reset your muscles into the state of rest and not being contracted.
Could I say something?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have a tight pec here. I just found out, and it's affecting my shoulder joint. It's from backcountry skiing and carrying a pack. And so I understand exactly what you're saying here, because this feels weak because this muscle is tight and it's pulling on my capsule. So
Yeah.
it's a terrible feeling.
Yeah. And so then if your pec is tight and it's rolling your shoulder in, then the muscles on the back, like the rhomboids, they're kind of between your shoulder blades, they're going to get stretched out and weak, and they won't be able to do their job of flexing and contracting, because they're just kind of constantly being pulled to be tight. So the fascinating thing is, in the presence of instability, the brain attempts to stabilize whatever it is, our body, by layering the area with protective spasm. In other words, our body compensates for the imbalances so that we can get through life. Okay, so this man sitting in the park, why could he not be a kayaker taking a toke? He kind of looks like one. Can you see it? I mean, I've seen this. Of course, granted, people have life jackets on, so it kind of exacerbates that hump. But man, plenty of people are sitting in their kayak just like that. And so we need to kind of not do that. And then I look at this picture of me in the race where I got the money. It's like, wow, of course I've got a little water pack on me, but man, I'm not far away from that. You know, I'm habituating this forward curling in thing. Another thinker that I love is this book, 8 Steps to a Pain-Free Back. It's a great, quick read. Just something so simple as imagining you have a tail and you don't want to sit on it, but that you want to so that you can have the lumbar spine, the lower back part of the spine, in its natural position. I'm silly, I don't have a picture of the spine to show y'all, but I think everybody has seen what the spine looks like, right? There's 3 curves in it. You've got the cervical spine, AKA the neck spine. You've got the thoracic spine, which is the middle, the thorax, the part that's underneath your life jacket. And then you've got the lumbar spine, and those 3 curves are different. But when we sit curled under, you're starting on the, like the guy on the right with the tail tucked, you're starting to do more of this. Now, because of geeking out on this stuff, I look at something like this and I'm like, I can see that this guy is kind of leaning back. I can see that his shoulders might be kind of up towards his ears. To me, he looks like he's in an afraid stance, or not stance, but sitting stance. And I don't know if that's, if I'm just projecting on there, but I start to see these things. Who do I have next? Okay. And so here's where I'm going to segue into this woman who you may have heard about, Amy Cuddy. I wish I could. Okay. This graph is kind of weird, but she did this whole TED talk and wrote a book called Presence. And she's talking about power poses. And these scientific studies that where if you stand in a power pose, in other words, your chest is up, your shoulders are back, and you're not shy, you're owning your stance or your sit, then cortisol, which is the stress hormone, if you do it for 2 minutes, the cortisol decreases 25%, and testosterone rises 19% in both sexes for these. So if you kind of fake it till you make it, and you stand in a yes, I've got this confident pose with the best posture you can muster, then your testosterone rises, your cortisol, your stress hormone drops. And then the counter was true as well. Within a couple of minutes, if you're in a low power pose, like the kind of pose where people are texting on their phone and they're curled in and they're just like, and not confident looking, then your cortisol skyrockets up 17% and your testosterone drops. So this guy in the rapid, I know we don't have 2 minutes to puff up and have a power stance, but it's interesting to me how if you can act confident, if you can put your body in a confident spot before you go paddling, then you're more likely to have the right hormones working for you so that you can bust through that rapid and have less of a chance of kind of caving to the fear. This is called the Landau reflex, which is like what babies do when they're starting to, find their proprioception, their way in the world, their position in the world. And this is an important part of a baby's development. It also looks like a board surfer, perhaps, if you could just imagine a board or a surfboard underneath the baby. And this is, I mentioned the red light reflex. This is the green light, which is the opposite. And an imbalanced green light reflex would be someone who's kind of maybe too type A or too aggressive. But in kayaking, we kind of need to undo that red light and do stretches and exercises that strengthen these muscles. And I'll come back to that. Here's an example. This is Noria Newman. I just saw this on the web and I said, there's a lot of stuff going on in the river, but what I see is that I don't see her shoulders raised up. She's very neutral, centered in her boat. Her neck can move non-rigid. Just an observation. Clay Wright, inventor, 4-time kayak freestyle gold, just awesome. Just I asked him what he wanted to say for this, and he said, it's not like that I'm old now, so I better do these things like stretches and whatnot. It's just that as much as I learned to love a post paddle stretch in the sun, or to notice that, hey, my back is tensing up from that landing, I better stretch it out before I go to bed or I'll regret it. It's almost like brushing your teeth. Remember when people told you you have to brush your teeth? Now it's like, huh, did I? Better safe than sorry. He said, your body learns to remind the mind what it needs. So this is going back to our brain, our brain's programming our body. And if we believe, even with injury, it's like, oh, I have a bad shoulder. It's like, well, do you? Or is it just that you haven't addressed whatever pattern is going on? Anna Levesque, probably heard of her. She wrote Yoga for Paddling. By the way, Mind Body Paddle Fest for women is June 5th and 6th in Bryson City. It should be fun. I asked her what she said, what keeps me injury-free is self-awareness. Boom, right there. It's like, really? Like, these stars are telling me, it's like, it's not some magic formula. It's just basically that they're paying attention to themselves and then kind of fixing what's not right. Taking actions to incorporate opposite actions. Remember when I said to paddle backwards? Opposite action, stretching, and foods to counteract any imbalance that shows up. Wow. I mean, it's so simple, but it's so hard to implement because attention span and all that. Self-knowledge is power. Huh. Wow. I see a theme here. I hope you do too. Lastly, I get a massage on a monthly basis, comma, hopefully from me, comma, and go to PT or chiropractor when I need to. The good food here, I'm throwing this in because it's very interesting. It's not easy to eat good, but I love these things that are so simple, where it's like a handful is about an ounce of nuts, your palm 3 ounces of meat, a fist the size of a cup, a finger 1 ounce. It's just kind of nice if you're ever, I like portable things like that you can just kind of remember, so that you don't have to get too techie or have too many things on your person to deal. And then my personal way to stay injury-free is to try to have good cardiovascular, and I do that through interval training. And to do that, I catch every eddy, surf every wave. And what I mean is, I play the river. I take off sprinting to an eddy that no one else would really care about, and then try to connect that to another eddy or attain upstream, and just try to do as much as I can on a river. Surf every wave. Of course, some of them you don't because they're dangerous or whatever, but just the littlest waves, all that habituation of going and making the most of the small features. It makes class 2 fun again. It makes me satisfied, and I get a workout from being on a river that might not otherwise be so crazy or, amazing. Simple wall test to check out your posture. It should be easy. If you stand with your feet 6 inches away from the wall, your butt, shoulders, and head should touch the wall without a bunch of doing. But I guarantee you, most of us, me included, it's not that easy, and that we're kind of like these 2 guys on the right, kind of curling into that red light reflex, the old man posture that I've been talking about. And okay, now to a little bit of kayak form. This is very short.
You can add more power to your stroke by utilizing your legs and hips. In order to do this, if I'm paddling on the right side, I would start with my right knee slightly up at the start of the stroke. And then during the stroke, I would push with the right leg, and in doing so, that pivots my right hip back in the seat. By getting hip rotation coming from the legs, that's multiplied in the rotation that my shoulders are able to achieve.
Okay, so with opening, being able to have better rotation and your shoulder being further back, you put less strain on the all of the muscles, the rotator cuff muscles, and all of the muscles surrounding the shoulder, because you've let your torso lead and open up to where your shoulder can follow. There's people who don't get good rotation can tear their shoulders up faster.
Tree, question
Yes.
about that. Do you do this in a whitewater boat too?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, every stroke I take, I'm always pushing every time with each foot. It's a full body experience every stroke.
I've noticed that people are really outfitting their boats tightly so they can barely move, and I wonder if it's impeding their ability to move their hips in this way.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the sprint kayakers who sprint across the lake or whatever in the Olympics and all that, their seats, they have rotating seats.
Yes.
And I can't help but think that that must be way healthier for the body than to be in a kayak that's very tightly outfitted, where the only rotation you're going to get is if you move the whole boat. I mean, yeah, I think that that's actually a problem, what you spoke of, the super, super tight outfitting.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is just a photo of a women. It was a women's wellness trip, or it is one still, that we do on the Lower Salmon in Idaho, where we go kayak. And Devin Barker instructs. She's a great teacher, and I row the boat down, and then we have Pilates on the beach with Lisa Marie, who's an excellent Pilates teacher. And it's like, wow, to do this out in the wild, and all you really kind of need is your paddle. It's very fun. Oh, this is just a quick photo of surf kayaking at Steamer Lane. This guy dropped it. The guy on the left, Mark, dropped in on Sean on the right. I'm not sure why I included it, but just to kind of give you, a lot of people don't know what surf kayaking is, but boy, that just is quite a photo. In a sea kayak here, notice that I don't think you could do that, could you? If you weren't sitting in a good position, you wouldn't be able to rotate in your trunk, could you? If you were kind of hunched over. I feel like.
So there was a question about that the surf photo with the two surfers on one wave. Is that Mark Woolward?
It is. Is that Paul asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
And somebody else is like confirming, yes.
Yeah, Mark dropped in on Sean. I don't know why I had this photo, but I guess I wanted to share it. It's just so amazing.
It is amazing.
Here is the late, great, our friend. I am completely, wow.
The name's
amazing.
That's okay. We'll come back.
Golly. Okay, but anyway, I wanted you to see the shoulders. These are this outrigger. We went from Santa Cruz to Monterey, and the shoulders in paddlers roll forward. We just do. So we've got to pull them back. Here's me, John Hadley, and somebody else standing. I don't know why my shoulders look like they're back. I might have known that a photographer was there, but seriously, but John, he is exhibiting a kind of thing like a lordosis, where his upper back is kind of curved and his belly's kind of pooched out, and it's just not the healthiest for the spine. We might get into that more later. Here is an example of rotation. The canoeist up top, that's some rotation right there. This is me a couple months. This is in the Chattajack race on the Tennessee River. Like 2 months after I got the board. Wow. And racing but pretty decent, what do you call it? Rotation there. The sprint kayaker rotating. And we can't do that if we're not seated in the kayak in the right way. One one good way to get to seat yourself in your kayak is, you ever sit down and then pull your butt cheeks back so that you sit more on your sits bones? Like whenever you get in a kayak, I do that, is I sit in that and then I lean forward and I pull my butt material up so that it's more behind me and I can sit not on that tail that I showed you, but let the tail be behind me. There's wave ski. This is what I do to stay in shape, is swimming laps. This is just a beach at Santa Cruz with the pool mash up over it. Swimming is a great exercise. Here's some just stuff online. I can see that the lady on the left, it's just kind of funny the way she's holding the paddle, so I included it. The other guy, what I see here is like, oh, he's not really rotating. He's kind of leaning. He hasn't paddled much because I don't see any rotation. Surf kayaking. Let's see. Let me see what time it is here. I've got a lot. 2020. Did the video do okay last time, TG?
It did good, and you really have an hour and a half if you want it.
Well, I don't want to. Yeah.
As she puts the blade in the water, she's connected from her foot on the footboard. She pushes on the footboard and pushes the hip back at the same speed as the shoulder on the pulling arm. So she's engaged the leg, the torso, the back and the arm in the one fluid motion or one kinetic chain of energy. Jo is using a swivel seat, and you'll see that when she drives on the left leg, the left hip will come back, and at the same time the right hip will go forward. With good rotation, you can see that she rotates her upper body so that she actually is showing her back to the bank on either side as she rotates. The amount of rotation you can get is commensurate with how strong your core is and how strong your connection is. If you don't have a strong core, you won't be able to hold the boat stable.
The body works as one big unit, remembering also that blood pumps through your entire body. So the more efficient you stimulate blood flow through good muscle development in all those areas, the faster you're going to be able to clean out lactate out of your system and keep your body working more efficiently. So everything operates at 100%, I believe, in order to create a well-balanced performance.
Inconsistent leg drive or ineffective leg drive will put too much strain on your upper body and the smaller muscles in your limbs, in your arms, rather than the big muscles of the legs and the butt and the back. It will change the angle of the blade in the water, and you'll end up picking water up at the back of the stroke. You should not lean one way or the other in the boat or cause the boat to roll. It'll create more drag on the water, and it'll slow the boat down. Likewise, if there's any movement with the body forwards and backwards, if you break at the hip and you move forward and backward with the stroke, it'll also cause the boat to bounce. The top hand should remain behind the bottom hand for as long as possible and only come forward with the rotation of the body, not push through too quickly. Once the top hand is in front of the bottom hand, it creates a negative angle and actually pulls the back of the boat down into the water, and that's another reason you see a boat bouncing down the course.
Can I say something about those videos?
Do it.
The way that came through, the video was a little choppy in quality, and it's worth watching those again later on your own Wi-Fi, not over Zoom, so you can see more clearly what the boat is doing in each one of those. It's pretty amazing how some of those paddling mistakes cause the boat to bob up and down and do other odd things.
Yeah.
Worth a viewing on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, now is a period of websites that you can come back to and click onto. They're live linked, and also we'll run through them. We could even do some of them if we have time. But this is just such a simple one. You can do this anywhere. You just need the ground and a towel. You are pressing the hand toward the floor, the palm towards the floor. If it hurts the front of your shoulder, then back off.
This
but
is one of the stretches that I just started doing. I just got this stretch yesterday,
Cool.
and so hopefully it's gonna help.
Deb, is this you who just mentioned the skiing, or
Yeah.
the tight pec? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
nice. This is a great exercise, swimming, and she's funny. I like her. So remember the baby?
Yeah.
The Landau reflex, the green, like the little baby photo I showed you. Well, I mean, that's exercising all of that posterior kinetic chain muscles, right?
Mhm.
Something that we don't exercise those in a kayak, in a stand-up paddleboard, in a canoe, nothing like that. It's very effective. I know that hips are an issue for everybody. Everybody's got hips. This number 4 exercise is great. You can do this in the bed. You can, before you go to sleep, you can do this on the floor. You don't need anything.
Yeah, I swear by this exercise.
Yes.
I have to do this exercise every day.
Here we are at Santa Cruz after like a workshop that we did with who is the champion paddler here? Fiona Wild. She did a little workshop. Huh?
You're the champion.
Oh, well, no. No. So, but now that I've been studying this stuff, I can look at everybody standing here and I'm like, they're doing this, they're doing that. Fiona, she's an awesome athlete, but she's kind of got the forward slump. She's got the torso poking out and putting stress on pinching the lumbar vertebrae, and just whatever. We already saw that. This is excellent for the hips as well. I included the whole here. Basically, it's windshield wipers. But you want to make sure that you keep the body down and
here and I'm trying to lift the knees, don't include the pelvis. It's going to be a lift. What I want to feel is actually my pelvis. I'm thinking more of that 12 o'clock move. To bring the legs back to center, and then 6 o'clock as the knees go to the side. So I think 12.
What's he saying?
well, he's talking like he's talking like 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock on the clock.
Okay.
But what the main point is to keep your you don't want your whole body, you want to kind of glue the pelvis to the ground, your back to the ground, so that you're not completely rotating over, so that you're mobilizing the hip joint. The point is for the legs to go through the range of motion as the head of the femur into the hip joint, that capsule, rather than a big lumbar stretch. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm trying to mobilize the hip joint.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there's that. We've seen something similar before.
Right. Yeah. This is
Then pull it.
directly pulled from the Egoscue pain-free book that I showed at the very beginning. And in the photograph on the left, this is the kind of letting the shoulders have a break and kind of pull away from the body, and blood flow and disengagement. And you'll find if you do this, that most likely if you've been kayaking a lot or paddling, that's like, whoa, at first it's like not very comfortable. And then you settle into it, and then you're all of a sudden, then your shoulder blades lie more on your back naturally and don't wing out as much. And guess what that's going to affect? That's going to affect your back, your hips, and all the way down the chain. On the right hand side, this is to where the lumbar spine gets to kind of hang in its natural curve and let gravity just kind of settle it down, rather than it being under a load, which is what we are doing when we're standing and sitting. One of my favorites in the world for being tall, landscaper, massage therapist, leaning over a table, kayaker, stand up, everything, is this one on the left, where I just reach out to a countertop or something that's my height, or that's the height of my hips, and let that all hang. It stretches the entire backside of my body. On the right hand side, she's squeezing that block between her knees, and it's helping to seat the bones of the legs within the lower back. It's helping everything to get in the right configuration and balance out. So to undo this kind of sitting that we normally do, which is kind of slouched and lazy. Well, lazy is not a bad thing, but just the way we sit, and we don't really have good posture when we sit for the most part. But it's all in that book. This is a very great rotation strength builder.
We're going to start out with in a plank position. You want to make sure that your wrists are directly below your shoulders and that your head is in neutral alignment. Stomach is really tight, back is nice and flat. You're not squished down like a banana or have your butt up in the air. What you're going to do is have your feet a little bit apart, and you're going to watch your hand with your eyes the entire time. So you're reaching up towards the sky. Rotate underneath the opposite arm. Now show you what it looks like from the other side. Reach up towards the sky and reach through this arm and back up towards the sky. Now when you do this exercise, your hips are going to rotate just a little bit.
This is pretty advanced.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But an incredible strength builder, because it really strengthens the core. Now, okay, so has everybody done arm circles where your arms are out to your side like a T and you just do forward, backwards? If you add this golfer's grip, it's called in Egoscue, if you bring your fingers back so that they touch the top pads like this, and well, you can't see me because I'm sharing. I'm not going to undo that. I'll show you in a second. But if you do arm circles like this, then you engage all sorts of other muscles than you do if you're just doing a normal arm circle. It's great for warming up before paddling. It's incredible. Large and small arm circles, and very, very little effort. You know, I mean, you can just do it anywhere. Here's a link that I'm not going to click onto, but when you come back to if you come back to this, you can click on this link for a great home workout for paddlers that just is, I like it a lot. And here are some shoulder stabilizing exercises that you've probably seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Here is a really nice YouTube as well, that with Pete Egoscue, that goes through a whole kind of body training session for anybody with pain or just for fitness.
Mhm.
And then I'm sitting on one of these right now. I got it for $5, so maybe you can get it. There's the website, and this just helps me in a chair be a little more forward and not on my back butt like other photos I've shown you. It's like, so my tail is not tucked, and I find it to be very useful. And so why not have, it's the same stuff that we do kayak outfitting. Why not have this in a kayak to just raise just a little bit?
You sit in the middle of that or on the edge?
I just sit in the middle of it, like, so that, well, let's see. Yeah. I mean, it's only 6 inches wide. My sits bones are right at the narrow end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gives that a little bit of lift to where I can sit without the effort to have good posture sitting, so that if I'm doing something for a long period of time, I am naturally, without effort, in a better posture. Now, it's also a little bit of a crutch, right? We should be practicing when we sit to bring our, belly button closer to our back, and kind of our chest, our sternum kind of up, and have a level head, not looking down and curve and everything curving in. But if we're sitting for long periods of time, which most people do, then this is a nice little helper. Oh, is that it?
Is that all?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, wonderful. Because I want to talk more about sitting. I think that we sit too much, and that's part of the problem.
Sure. But guess what kayaking is?
Sitting.
Yeah. Yep. And then, you know what I would also say is very important?
What?
Hydration.
Cheers.
But how you sit matters too, and I think that's a big part of the point. And if you're in a workplace, which I know we aren't a lot these days, an ergonomic assessment, if there's somebody who can do one, can sometimes get you sitting better, especially if you sit for long hours of the day. And your alignment for all those hours of the day, I mean, can make a huge difference.
There's a comment from Matt A here. He says, tying Ida Rolf, Joseph Pilates, Thomas Myers, Esther Gokale to paddling. Awesome. So few people in that space apply such knowledge to paddling. This is great. Yeah, awesome. And I totally agree. There's a suggestion, shin box for hips after the windshield wipers.
Ooh. I don't know about shin box. And I have not used Alexander technique, but it's kind of on the list for next, if you know what I mean. But what is a shin box?
I don't know. Want to speak up, Michael Blythe? Are you out there, Michael? Can't hear him. Okay, I guess he's not gonna speak. Well, I have a list, but you guys, if you have questions, you can type them, or you can just unmute yourself and speak up, and we'll try to address all the questions. One of them is, what is shin box? We want to know. And I wanted to talk more about power poses too, because I know 2 of them. But do you know some power poses to teach us?
No, I don't know. That's new to me, that whole learning. But I can say that good posture is itself a
It's
power
the
pose.
foundation of a power pose. Yeah.
Okay.
So there was one comment from, let me find it, from a person named Alyssa McCall, who said that Amy Cuddy's research that suggested that testosterone increased and cortisol decreased significantly after doing these power poses had not been repeated or might not be repeatable. So I'm curious to know if that's been repeated. And I want to show you my favorite power pose. Get ready. It's yoga, it's star pose. Your chest is open, your arms are back, your feet are wide, and you hold that, and it doesn't take long to start feeling like a hero. It's a wonderful thing. I do it at the put-in when I'm scared.
Awesome. So Alyssa, are you saying that the science, or that it's not good science?
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of studies that I just put a link in that they tried to repeat it. But I think there was something recently where she disputed it and found something to repeat. So I don't know. I haven't looked at it recently, but a few years ago, it felt like it was completely disproven. And I don't know if that's been, what way that's gone recently, but.
Well, okay. I bet that everyone here could, whether that's all good or not, everybody does know the feeling of shrinking from fear, right? And guess what goes down? Your skill.
Mm-hmm.
You're more prone to injury, right? Whereas if you're kind of like and owning it, at least there's that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if the original results, because the hormonal changes were so large, I don't know if that's going to hold, but from my personal experience, I would say that power poses definitely change the way that I feel inside, and they're worth practicing. And there's quite a few of them. I've read some of the studies. One of them is when you stand up and put your hands on the table at a meeting. You know, that's a power pose. Or when guys will put their hands behind their heads and their feet up on the desk, that's a power pose. All these ways of basically taking up more space and feeling dominant, right? The bigger you get, the more powerful the pose is.
And how does that help keep us injury free? Well, if we get more oxygen in our body, then our muscles are going to work better. If we practice things that keep us balanced and not curved in, then we're going to have more oxygen flowing, more blood.
Mm-hmm. So have you had shoulder injuries, Tree?
Not really. I kind of had like a partial dislocation that went immediately back in when I just extended my arm and it went back in.
That counts.
Yeah, but no, which is interestingly the fact that I'm real small up top. I'm built small, and yet I've done all these paddling sports. I think that just is showing that it's like, yep, I'm going from the trunk. It's like my core is doing the work, because a lot of the work, and that not having big shoulder injuries, I think, is in part that I'm not muscling with my shoulders, and that I have loose grip on the paddle, and that I'm able, when I flip over, to kind of roll with it rather than trying to assert a position.
Well, how do you surf those gigantic waves on the ocean if you don't hold on to your paddle tight?
Well, you do, but just like in general, the way we learn how to kayak is that you kind of have a loose grip on your paddle, except for when you're in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because that looks pretty strenuous. I know how powerful that water is.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Shaw made a comment. He said, when we sit, gravity is always trying to pull us down into a slouch. Aligning the spine is something we need to repeat at intervals. It is not sit it and forget it. Yeah.
Word.
Word. And someone asked, have you used the Alexander technique tree?
No, I haven't. But like I was saying, it's on the list to check out.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Alexander and Moshe Feldenkrais were kind of like close buddies, or something like that. Like their work complements each other. Feldenkrais is another one. I'll spell it in the chat to check out. It's great for people who are like elderly people.
It's a German word, isn't it? A German name?
Feldenkrais, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
K-R-E-I-S.
Dang it. What?
I'm just trying to think how it's spelled.
Well, the first name, yeah, I don't know what nationality that would be.
Oh, someone spelled it here, Feldenkrais, Feldenkrais. Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but thanks for the recommendation of the Alexander technique.
Yes. Let's see. So a little more about the posterior kinetic chain. I think I understand that it's basically all the extensors on the backside of the body, everything from lifting your head to down to your hamstrings and your backs of your calves even. Is that part of it?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
all the back of your back and how about the trapezius and that? Is that part of it too?
Yeah, like so we're either in flexion
Mm-hmm.
or extension,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. And so the posterior kinetic chain is the extension, which we do very rarely in life unless we are a board surfer or a swimmer or, something like that. I mean, look at the way I'm sitting. I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what happens. And, I've been told by more than one PT, I've started doing deadlifts, which is a way of strengthening the hamstrings. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be helping with my boating, which I didn't expect. So, any other questions from the peanut gallery?
Well, Will asked, is the canoe kneeling position better for the body than sitting in a kayak?
Yes.
I mean, I think you can probably stack up better in a canoe than you can. I think it's easier to stack so that your spine is in a neutral position than you can in a kayak.
There's a question about tendinitis. This just says tendinitis ?
Well, a lot of the problems that we get in the like tennis elbow and the wrist problems, a lot of those come from the shoulder joint because nerves get kind of pinched up here, or that everything is so tight in the pec or whatever that it pulls on the rest of our stuff, and we don't have the full range of motion, and the nerves and the tissues don't get massaged by life. Like that probably sounds weird, but like when we walk down the road, our body, there's like spiraling actions that happen, and when in our body, so like muscles and tissues will like rub against each other, and that fascia that I mentioned, what is all like things are happening in our body. And when stuff gets tight and scar tissued up, or tight or scar tissue, or in some way limited, then our range of motion is limited, and then something else is compensating. So a lot of tennis elbow, wrist problems actually do come from other places.
Mm-hmm. Here's a new one. When strength training due to the prevalence of a forward position while at a computer, it is often recommended to perform twice the number of pulling, row exercises, etc., as pushing, bench presses, etc. Mm-hmm. Should paddlers perform a higher ratio of pull to push repetitions 3-to-1 instead of 2-to-1. In other words, reversing the action of paddling. I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, I think Matt, you have a pretty good clue on some of this stuff so far.
Mm-hmm.
Rowing is excellent, but we can row badly. We can get on a concept to ergometer and we can row badly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think exercises that counteract all the forward position stuff should, yeah.
Or like specifically in the rotator cuff, because I've rehabbed my own shoulders and helped with friends and family and patients working on their shoulders. And we tend to be strong in the internal rotation direction, you know, moving your hand towards your belly, and weak in the other direction, moving your hand out that way. And so I often will suggest that people do more external rotation exercises than internal rotation exercises, just to kind of balance that out, because we're always pulling things into us. So we're strong that way, relatively.
Yeah, even sitting here right now, what I'm doing is I'm rocking forward and backward on my sits bones to where I can find kind of a neutral. And then what I do is I'm thinking of opening my chest and my shoulder blades to kind of pull them together a little bit as a, you know, and then do that as an exercise, pull the shoulder blades together and then release, pull them together and release. Yep. Any hints on keeping a loose paddle grip without losing control? Well, I'm reading this book right now, Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
And he's talking about that basically if you just do something one little bit more and more, that over the long term is when you see the results. We are so stuck on wanting kind of the instant gratification. But so if you are, say, perhaps, Leanne, you are in a river and you just have moments where you practice the loose grip, then, you know, atom by atom, you build a molecule of difference.
I do this thing where when I'm pushing, I'll actually stretch my hand. I'll be like this and just kind of, and that reminds me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Hard to do with rubber gloves. Yeah, like a kitty. Let's see. Oh, another thing that I wasn't really totally clear on was the red light reflex and the green light reflex. I mean, I understand that the red light reflex is like this curled inward, hunched sort of posture, and the green light is the open one. Is the suggestion with the red and the green that red is a response to fear or stress, and the green is a response to, or what does it mean? Is there more about that?
What is it? I'm going to go out on a limb, just trying to put together the stuff that I've read and remember, is that the red light reflex is, as we go through life and experience stresses and fears and you know, kind of living in this human experience, and the fact that the body naturally flexes forward, we accentuate that reflex, whereas the human condition is less likely to be like outward and super confident. That's a stretch.
We'll have to look it up and study that some more. It's interesting.
There are two other reflexes that that Thomas Hanna put together. It's the senile posture and the trauma reflex, which is like where I have that in my shoulders. It's because of my hips, where it's like the body is crunched down on one side or the other. But yeah, I included a link that goes to a page from the Hanna Somatics Institute in this slideshow.
Now I'm really curious. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm curious to ask the audience if this talk, and you won't hurt my feelings, if it felt like a cohesive, was it something you can kind of understand, and did it get you to think about anything in your life or in your paddling a little bit differently? Or is it just kind of like, huh? I mean, I did get a nice compliment, and thank you very much. And I'm glad it helped. Tammy, you're welcome.
There's a yes from
Okay,
a couple
good.
people. Oh, a bunch.
Okay, good.
I think they liked it. I liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, big comment. Scrolling back to the
Oh,
big
good.
one.
There's Zach.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I like it.
From
Yeah.
upping my pushing volume, like as in like what, push-ups?
Actually,
Yeah, basically. And like bench press work and ring push-ups. Because I think there's a difference between like being in a static forward position where your chest is tight.
Yeah.
As opposed to like actually building strength in that sort of movement pattern. So it was kind of a response to what somebody was saying before about like trying to do more pull work. But I think that that's actually like kind of the opposite of what might be beneficial.
Uh-huh.
Well, like flies, like when you're prone on a yoga ball and you have some light weights in your arm and you're on the yoga ball and you do flies like that, you could call that a pull. But I'm interested in what you just said, Zach, about the upping the pull work would exacerbate.
Well, it's just like my issue in particular was that basically kayaking, you're doing like horizontal rows, over and over again. So I developed, huge back muscles, but I wasn't doing any like strength training to counteract that. So like my chest was way smaller and weaker by comparison, and that was causing a lot of issues. And so I think that if you're doing strength training for like injury prevention in conjunction with paddling, the paddling is developing strength in your pull work. You're pulling all the time. And like, yeah, there's a little bit of a push, but it's not, I don't think it really compares.
Right, that bottom arm is pulling, it's rowing back.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that depends though on your actual paddling technique, and that it's probably different muscles get developed in different people based on how they paddle. And if you're rotating your torso and maybe even your hips, that you will do less of the development of the back, arms, shoulders, and more in the core. Does that make sense?
Yeah, getting the core work from the rotation for sure, and having it there. But I think Zach is addressing that really it is like a row, because the bottom part of the kayak stroke is you're pulling. And you're flexing. I mean, you're flexing the body. You're red light reflexing each time.
Which is where Devin's tip comes in about back paddling.
Yeah, back paddling's awesome. Try it sometimes. You'll see how weak you are.
I am weak, and do it often enough to know. Now that's a good comment, Zach. That's worth considering repeatedly. Let's see, people had to leave early. Posture is extremely important. Did we not mention posture? Of course. Tree knows about posture. Yes.
Yeah, totally. Totally, Tony.
Well, and I just want to say that tendinitis is inflammation. Itis is an active inflammation, and tendinosis is the disorganization of the connective tissue of the fascia that occurs when tendinitis goes on too long. And they're two different things, and they have two different treatments. So if you have these things, you should perhaps seek someone that can tell the difference between the two and get it treated appropriately. Massage therapy for tendinosis. Right, Tree?
Yep. Licensed.
That's incredible. I'm so glad you did that. I'm looking for more questions. I'm seeing a lot of comments. Back to paddling after a year and being better in spite of a lack of specific paddle training because you increased your understanding and awareness of your body. That was amazing. And look, that's Deborah. She's here.
It was amazing coming back because I literally didn't paddle once for the year, and I was coming off of my peak of paddling, and I was paddling for work and everything. And the Pilates that I did got me so in tune with my body that I was on the river in a completely, it was like when in Karate Kid, when the time slowed down and Mr. Miyagi caught the fly with the chopsticks. I was so much in control of me that it was just a beautiful feeling, and I'll never forget it. And that's what started me on the journey of like, okay, we have more capacity than we think to alter our experience of life in our body. And then the other pros that I mentioned, they're all pretty much saying, pay attention to yourself. So.
Thank you so much. So many good lessons.
I'm so excited to do it.
Wonderful. Okay, last call on questions, kids, before we let our star go for the night. Thank you, Tree.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very grateful to you for bringing in all of these really a lot of different sources and a lot of different angles on the same questions that we're working on all the time. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
And,
Thank you, Tree.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're gonna want to look at all of those links. So please do send the updated slideshow so we can post it on the website.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for caring. This was the last one of our safety series for the year.
Good work, Teresa.
Thanks. Bye, Sammy. Bye, UCLA. Bye, everybody.